You're listening to Cool Air Hot Takes.
Welcome to the first episode of Cool Air Hot Takes, a brand new podcast, and we're going to do this every 2 weeks.
We're going to talk about anything and everything from the world of buildings, HVAC, and energy.
We're your hosts. I'm Charlie Jelen.
And I'm Dan Gentry.
And between us, we've got over 30 years of industry experience.
So, I started at Ferris State University and honestly fell in love with HVAC at a modular equipment manufacturer. After that, moved over to train in product support, and now I help design some of the most complex systems as an applications engineer.
And my background is in engineering with stints in energy modeling, product management, application engineering. I spent a few years on the contracting side of our business, and now I'm a sales leader for some of our next generation technologies.
And amazingly, we've been friends for even longer.
A friendship that started at Longfellow Middle School. Dan, do you remember the mascot?
Those were the Longfellow Trojans.
The Trojans. Yes.
Green and white.
We somehow both found our way back into this exciting and sexy world of HVAC, and we're starting a podcast to bring you along for the ride.
We've got everything. We're covering stuff from industry insights, cool new tools, big trends. Think about decarbonization. We're going to talk about energy efficiency, of course, and really cool new upcoming things like artificial intelligence and how that affects you, your operations, your buildings. So whether you're listening in your van, rolling between jobs, sitting at your desk, catching lunch, or you just want to catch up on what's going on in the industry, we are excited to have you guys here.
My hot take for the week is definitely going to be, I think geothermal systems, from the amount of geothermal system projects we do today, we are going to triple the amount of geothermal projects. Maybe not this year, maybe not in 1 year, but by 2030, we are going to do way more geothermal systems. We're going to have to do a whole episode on geothermal.
I was just going to say, geo's getting hot. It's getting hot. There's a lot of geo going on and new advancements. It's exciting.
So that's my hot take. There you go.
No,
that's my hot take. What do you got?
Is,
What's your hot take for the episode?
No, that's pretty hot. I tell you what I really like, I want to go for my hot take. I just think this episode and this podcast is hot. We've been talking about this. Can we do that? I'll have to think about my hot take.
That's a self-serving hot take right there.
Well, I'm going to tie to your geothermal. I think there's been a lot of new products. There's been a lot of geothermal products out there, but there's more and more geothermal products out there. I could even say geothermal could be hot. And I think it's very exciting because it's a very efficient system. It can be very sustainable. I like that.
Well, just like 7th grade math with Mrs. Motter.
Just copying right off, right over the shoulder. Right over the shoulder.
All right, so here's the lineup for today, listener. We are going to go through some HVAC headlines. We're going to get you up to speed on some of the things that we saw in headlines that looked interesting and we want to get out there. We're going to talk with one of our good friends, Jon Horne. He's the managing director of a venture capital company called the Idea Fund. We're going to talk about where VC funds are at, what they're into today, and what that looks like over time. And then we're going to go into, I talked about this earlier, the Innovation Awards for the AHR Expo in a little feature that we like to call...
Cool or hot?
Or hot or cold.
Hot or cool.
Either one.
HVAC headlines. Your news today.
All right, listener, it's 5 o'clock in Shanghai. That means it's time for your headlines. First one, startup aims to decarbonize big buildings without hassling tenants. This one is from Canary Media. The startup name on this one is Hydronic Shell Technologies. What caught my eye on this one is a lot of large cities are looking to reduce their emissions and primarily electrify. And large multifamily, high-rise residential buildings are going to struggle with this, with electrification, primarily moving to heat pumps. Kind of the core of this is the current heating technology is a lot of high-temperature heat or steam heat, probably a lot of steam heat for older cities. And so when we look to electrify these systems, we want to try to use heat pumps. One of the things that we need to do there is we need to move to lower hot water temperatures. With that transition, we need to start to replace the terminal units. We need to move to more rows, bigger pipes. And so for those who don't understand what I'm saying here, the terminal equipment is that thing in the room that actually makes the space hot or cold. All right. And so What this company is looking to do, what this startup is looking to do, is actually create a new facade on the building in order to make it easier to replace the terminal equipment and run the pipes. And so you can imagine if you own a large building in one of these big cities and you want to electrify with heat pumps and you have to replace all the terminal equipment, that means you have to get into every space, right? Which means you're going to have to displace renters, or you're going to have to significantly hamper their day-to-day schedule.
Sounds expensive.
It sounds very expensive. And so what this startup is looking to do is on the outside of the building, it's like Lego blocks or like Tetris, is build up this new facade that runs the pipes and new terminal equipment on the outside of the building so that you can put air-to-water heat pumps on the ceiling, water-to-water heat pumps in the basement, and you can run all that pipe work on the outside of the building. On top of that, you increase insulation, you have better infiltration. It's a really interesting way to try to get at that problem.
That is very cool. It's a really innovative idea. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
I mean, I think if it's cost effective, it looks very cool. It's a very neat idea.
Yeah, the cost
as long
side
as
of
the
it,
cost is reasonable, I think this could be I can see that.
Yeah, we'll see where the cost goes. The first demo project is in Syracuse, New York. It looks like it's scheduled for completion mid-2026. So it's a ways out, but very cool concept. Can't wait to follow up on the case study there. All right, next headline. I think this one caught my eye and instantly knew we were going to put it on here. Headline, most lucrative states to be an HVAC technician. This one's from ACHR News.
Here we go.
All right, Danny boy. Top 5 most lucrative states. Take a guess. What do you got?
I mean, I'm going to guess something like, I don't know, like one of those big state out east, Massachusetts, New York.
Massachusetts not on the list. They are number 36.
Oh wow! So we got to go somewhere else. We go south. We go Midwest. What about the Dakotas?
Yeah, good guess. So the way that they did these rankings, they looked at the average annual technician salary. And then they also looked at the cost of living ratio. So they put the cost of living ratio at 100 for the average across the U.S. If you're under 100, that means your dollar goes further. If you're over 100, it does not go as far. So at number 5, very good guess, North Dakota. Average annual salary for a technician, $64,000 a year. The cost of living ratio at 95.
Look at that.
There you go, North Dakota. All right, next on the list, number 4, New Jersey, $78,000. That is, I believe, the second highest average for technicians. Cost of living ratio, a little higher, 114, but right up there. Way to go, New Jersey. Third, number 3, Missouri, $62,000 a year, 89 ratio for cost of living. Number 2, Minnesota, $71,000, 94 ratio. Number 1, the Fighting Illini, Illinois, $77,000 for the average HVAC technician and a cost of living ratio of 92.
Well, because we're here, what about the Badger State? Just because, it's self-interested.
There you go. Wisconsin came in at number 6. Pretty good. $64,000.
It's respectable.
All right, let's look at the other side of this. The 5 worst, the lowest paying average annual HVAC technician. What do you got for a guess?
Oh, I'm gonna guess Louisiana.
No. I mean, I don't know why you're calling out Louisiana.
I don't know. I gotta pick a state. I only got 50 choices.
They're not on the top 5 lowest. Number 5 in terms of worst is Maine, $56,000 a year for average annual salary. I did not see that coming. I know. I agree. 110 for cost of living up in Maine. Florida, number 4. $51,000 a year for an average annual technician. That is the third. That blows
my mind.
Yeah.
Don't they have a lot of cooling?
I did too. That's exactly where my head went too. Like tons of chilled water plants, big stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. 51,000 is the third lowest in terms of average annual HVAC technician. Yeah. Number 3, Vermont, $70,000 a year, which is actually pretty high for Vermont, but their cost of living is $147.
Wow.
Yeah. 147. That means they basically pay 50% more for everyday life. There you go. Number 2, Washington, D.C., also $70,000 a year. Not a surprise there. Number 1, though. Number 1, the worst place, I shouldn't say the worst, in terms of being lucrative for an HVAC technician, Hawaii.
Okay.
And now this is quite interesting. They have the highest annual average salary at $80,000 a year. But the cost of living ratio is 180, 80% more than the average annual state.
I guess I'm surprised by the list, but it's the cost of living. Cost of living.
Yeah. It matters where you live, I guess.
Well,
you know what they say in the real estate business?
Buy low, sell high.
I think that's the stock market.
Well,
location. Okay. That's what I was getting at.
Interesting.
There you go. And to be fair, across the board, I think all of these are going to go up significantly in the space because we are looking for more and more HVAC technicians every day. Well, we have a shortfall there. So, hey, if you're looking to be an HVAC technician, now's a good time to get in.
They deserve it. Pay them more. We need more. I love it.
There we go. All right, so that's it for the headlines today. Next up, we are going to interview Jon Horne. He's the managing director at a venture capital fund called the Idea Fund. Stay tuned. All right, first episode, first interview. Welcome, Jon Horne, to Cool Air Hot Takes. Before we get into the actual part of this, I got to give you a little background on Jon. Jon is a key member of the downhill ski team Wildsau. He was the ace on the Central High School pitching staff. He is an avid snowmobiler. He scored a 36 on his high school ACT. He is probably the smartest person I know. If you're wondering how I know all this, no, it is not on his Wikipedia page. Myself, Dan, and Jon, we go way back. We all are proud alumni of Central High School. So, Jon, thank you for coming.
Charles, thank you for the invite. I'm honored to be on the first and what hopefully is not the last episode of your new podcast.
Thank you for the confidence. Very, very much appreciated. All right, you know the title. Cool Air Hot Takes is where we're going to start. What's your hot take? You can go anywhere with this one. You can go in venture capital. You can go outside it, our industry, personal. What do you got?
Okay. Well, first thing that popped in my mind when you guys said I should do this and told me what a hot take was that this podcast is either going to end or massively accelerate the career of one or both of you at a train company. But and that's not meant to be a dig. I kind of thought about it as like, you guys are ones who are like, hey, here's what we're going to say and take it down to the corporate communication department and get the approval and everything. So that was my honest first take. But I guess for purposes of, you could edit this out, I assume. Right?
yeah, we can take that.
Yeah. My actual thought was, if you look at the next 5 to 10 years in, the HVAC market taken broadly, I think you're going to see more change in the next 5 to 10 years than you have seen in the last 50 to 100 years.
Ooh,
interesting.
What do you think drives it?
Well, so you look at just all industries, and they've been impacted by technology and disruption at different rates. And so some of the first to be disrupted were things like retail, travel, media, like what's CBS, right? Streaming, turn that upside down. Amazon turned retail upside down in a lot of ways. You have not seen that fundamental sort of reshuffling of the deck in a number of other industries. And HVAC building management is one of them. You guys maybe will tell me I'm wrong on that, but the fundamental products are the same. And more importantly, the market leaders have essentially been the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you look at like the auto industry, with 15 years ago, Tesla was not a public company. Today, Tesla has more value than the next 9 auto companies combined. Right? Like you have not seen that unseating of incumbents in this industry that you have in others. And so I think it's very timely that you guys are initiating this podcast because, innovation is really starting to strike in this industry where it really, in ways it hasn't over the last any number of years.
I mean, I got to tell you, I had a high bar for you coming on the show. And you just went past it. That was great. We could not have asked for a better start. All right. Well, let's get to you. Tell us about the Idea Fund. What's the background? What are you guys into?
Sure. So Idea Fund's a venture capital fund. So that means we manage money on behalf of third-party investors, and we invest it in very early stage technology companies. And our strategy is technology companies based sort of generally in our part of the country, which is the upper Midwest. And, when you look at venture capital, it's highly concentrated in a few geographies, right? About 80% of venture capital goes into California, New York, Boston, the top 3 to 4 states. The other 20% is distributed across the other 46 states. We're specifically focused on Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa because we believe the kind of innovation that's coming is the kind of innovation that this part of the country is strongest at. This kind of ties into the original point where a lot of the stuff that's really been changing, over the last 20 years of venture innovation is kind of consumer driven and mass market stuff. It's not a lot of the nitty gritty B2B industries. So you still want your Stanford dorm room kid or whatever on the team, but to found a new company in the HVAC industry, in supply chain and, in the traditional B2B industries, you really need industry expertise. So that's the kind of companies and founders that we really tend to invest in, is people coming in with deep industry expertise in areas that our part of the country is strong in.
Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit of that, where those ideas are coming from and who should be on the lookout for them. But in general, you're talking about like the trend of venture capital. Is venture capital growing, or is it more of like a zero-sum game where the money's relatively similar and it's just getting shuffled around between what's hot and what areas of the business are going? Or is venture capital growing like crazy?
Well, there's a couple ways you can look at it. Venture capitalists and venture capital funds in general, it's really California centric, and they're really kind of herd animals where you see these big sort of cyclical swings. We saw the dot-com boom and then the dot-com bust. Mm-hmm. And then we are on sort of the bust side of another cycle right now where in 2021, 22, we saw massive amounts of money flowing into venture capital. And now we saw a just as massive pullback, where 2024, this was the lowest year for venture capital fundraising out of the last 10 years. 2024 was.
Wow.
Okay, so there's been this massive pullback in venture capital. And now, of course, we're on sort of into the next cycle of AI and, this massive investment into AI and infrastructure and all this that's going on right now. So, you see huge swings. It's a really cyclical industry. But in general, that's venture capital. What do you think about taking a step back at the innovation economy? Mm-hmm. That is just consistently up and to the right? As you get sort of compounding returns from technological innovation. That is just only accelerating how much technology is impacting industry.
How do you think the Midwest is different than, those states that you mentioned are kind of like boom or bust? Do you think the Midwest is going to be different?
I think you got to look at it all comes down to the people. That's really what all this boils down to. And when you think about, the traditional venture centers, there was a lot of real heavy technical innovation that came out of them. Silicon Valley means the silicon chips, that were there. It was really the foundational computing elements and stuff like that sort of gave birth to that. So we don't have as much of a fundamental computing heritage and deep technical heritage, in this part of the country. We have, industrial, agriculture, supply chain, those industries that make up 60, 80% of US GDP, right? And the industries that happen to be the least disrupted by technology today. So, Silicon Valley was in the right place for innovation over the last 75 years, whatever you want to call it. Now you've got this huge portion of the economy that has not been fundamentally transformed yet by technology. It's been changed by degree, right? But not fundamentally. That's where I think you're going to see the rest of the country sort of come in, and you're going to see some really new and innovative and I think potentially massively valuable companies ultimately created out of, the heritage that we have here.
We kind of dive down in there a little bit on the trends. Can you back us out a little bit? In our industry, when we talk about technology, you'll hear people talk about, wow, this is at, RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, or it's at a Pacific Northwest National, it's at a university stage, or it's in venture capital, or it's early commercial versus commercial. Can you kind of walk us through that spectrum on how technology goes kind of from its infancy to a company like Train Company or the likes having a commercial offering?
Yeah, it's interesting. And when you think about sort of innovation generally, you would think of just Amazon, for example, as an innovative company that completely turned an industry upside down. Mm-hmm. But when you think about the value that Amazon delivers to its customers, its customers being you and me and other Amazon subscribers, the product is identical, right? You're still getting essentially all the same crap you can get at Walmart or anywhere else through Amazon, right? It's the delivery mechanism. Mm-hmm. So when you think about innovation, as it relates to the HVAC industry, one big category of innovation is product innovation, like what you're talking about, a new refrigerant, right? Or, something like that. That's a highly technical product that starts in a lab or starts in the brain of, some engineer and somehow is funded to develop, ultimately commercialized, validated to the point that a Train company could acquire it. A whole other category of innovation is everything else that happens in the value chain, right? Not just a new product, but how about like a new way to sell the product, right? So how you reach your customers, how fulfillment, right? Services, whether that's a live human service or a software product delivering service. But at the end of the day, when you think of all these, it comes down to a product innovation, and somewhere in somebody's head, there's a product innovation, right? Whether it's, a refrigerant or it's a process, right? Or whatever. And you need that, you need the management talent, and you need capital. Right? Those are like the three pieces. Right? And sometimes
that's it, huh?
Easy peasy.
Right. When you start to categorize it, right? Slice it up. And so if you've got, I guarantee there's somebody sitting at every large industrial HVAC equipment OEM with a brilliant product innovation in their mind. Maybe they've tried to run it up the flagpole and hasn't gotten interest from the senior people on the team or whatever. I guarantee there are people out there right now that have that idea, and if they don't do something with it, it's never going to get out into the world.
There you go, listener. In the show notes, we'll give you Jon's company's email address, your inbox. We'll flood it up.
Idea Fund VC, come straight to my email.
There you go. All right, so let's talk about something that you have invested in that's kind of close, that our listeners are probably more interested in. We talked about this earlier. Eneration. Can you give us a little background on what that is and what your role is with them?
Yeah, it's a really interesting company. And of course, they provide efficiency services to health systems, building efficiency services. Okay, so what they're doing is it's a sophisticated services offering, right, where they're making healthcare buildings more efficient. That's established. Their history is really interesting, where they were originally developed as an internal initiative at Gunderson Health System, which is, a large upper Midwest, predominantly rural health system. The CEO probably 20 years ago put a stake in the ground and said, we're going to be net zero on campus, and actually went out and got it done through combinations of generation, building efficiency, all the kind of things that you guys are working on. And they did it. And they had hired a number of people from Trane that came in-house to sort of build this out at Gunderson. They accomplished it. And then they got all this attention nationally, and other health systems started calling us and saying, hey, look, we want to become more efficient. We've always put the patient first, right? So we can't take risks on reliability and things like that. But it sounds like you guys have figured out a way to do this, right? Without taking risk. And in fact, maybe making your system more resilient. So they started doing sort of consulting projects for other health systems and turn it into this little internal business. And then a few years ago, they made the decision, hey, this isn't our core, we're very good at this, right? It's very important, but it's not our core job, right? Our core job is patient care. Right? So they took the business, they spinning it out, it's called, where they actually separated it into its own entity. The health system still owns a piece of it, and then they raised capital from outside investors, and we're one of the outside investors. And now we're working with management to try to, just grow the business and make it a large standalone business.
So I think it's pretty, maybe it's not obvious, but like the differentiation that they have versus just any engineering company walking into a healthcare system is the innate knowledge, the internal knowledge that they've developed, that they've incubated over the years. Is that kind of, is it? Well,
you get a lot of pitches, and 80% of them are, hey, look at this awesome product I've got. Right. Mm-hmm. And okay, that's great, right? Like, to be a successful company, you need a credible, valuable product. It's necessary, but not sufficient, right? You also need, a way to talk to your customer, a way to sell it efficiently. You need trust with your customers, all this kind of stuff. And when you think about a health system buyer, yes, they want to save money on that percent of their budget that is, spent on energy costs, but they also want 100% reliability. They want their physicians to understand this isn't impacting the humidity in the operating room or specific considerations that a health system might have that other building owners do not have. And so part of what Eneration offers is a really high-level energy consulting business, but it's also a way to reach a certain customer population efficiently and in a way that builds trust very quickly, because these guys really know their industry, right? And the customer understands that they do right from the start.
Got it. So from your spot, what is a successful turn on a company like Eneration? What did they get into? And then where do you get out of that as a successful venture?
So when you look at our economics, so I manage money from third-party investors, right? And especially when we started, a lot of the investors are individuals investing personally $100,000 to $1 million, something like that. And, you go to them and say, hey, I'd like you to commit $500,000 to Idea Fund. I'm going to go invest in 20 technology companies. They're all in the upper Midwest. When we make our initial investment, they're between $0 and $200,000 or $300,000 a year, maybe, in revenue. Mm-hmm. They're so early our plan is at least half of them are going to be complete loss of capital.
Wait, what's the percentage?
At least half, at least 50%.
Okay.
And those are national averages, right? Of companies nationally that raise this type of capital, at least half of them, 100% loss of capital. Okay, so like, let's just say I'm coming to you guys, you got $5 million in net worth. I'm looking for $100,000 from you. What kind of return do you have to expect out of the investment and idea fund?
10x.
To say, yeah, like think about an annual return, right? Like what is the stock market return over on average?
10%,
5%, 8?
Yeah, 10, 8, 10, 12, whatever. So if you're going to get 8, 10, 12 out of the stock market, right, which is 100% liquid, essentially 0% failure rate, global diversification. You know, if you want your money out, you call me, you got it 2 days later. What are you going to need out of idea fund?
Do people looking for 25%?
Yeah. I mean, twice large cap equities, something like that. And that's just to be in the ball game, right? Like that's just to sort of be okay, right? So like say I need net 20% return out of the portfolio. Okay. Then you take the next step and you say, all right,
half of them are out.
Half of them are zeros, national average, 1 or 2 maybe get your money back, a couple returns. And then really 1 or 2 out of 10 will typically drive your portfolio return. Okay. So if I'm going to get 20% net and 1 out of 5 of them is going to drive the return, I mean, you guys know math. You're going to need, 80, 100% annual return on the winners to make up for all the losers and get you even at parity with the stock market.
Yep.
Right. So
is that stressful?
Well, you get a lot of chances, Yeah, we lose one. I mean, they're just getting close. We're just executing the plan, right?
Well, a friend of ours once said, "I gamble every day of my life." Oh, that's good.
So back to your short answer to your question is, I mean, that's why people say 10x. Like you need a big result out of these companies for it to be worth all the risk you're taking on.
Well, Jon, we've held you for probably too long in your day, but how can people get a hold of you? If they think they have something, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would love to talk to anyone. Idea Fund VC is in venturecapital.com. We've got a submission form on there. It goes straight to my email. So I'd love to talk to anybody. And you don't need a business. I mean, we've come in and actually co-founded businesses. So we can work with a product inventor and put something together around it. Love to talk to them.
Super cool.
There you go, listener. Reach out to Jon.
Next opportunity.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Jon. Very interesting. Up next, we're going to talk about the AHR Innovation Awards in a feature we like to call Hot or Cold. Don't go anywhere.
Is it hot or cold?
All right, we're back. We're going to talk about the AHR Innovation Awards in our Hot and Cold segment today. So for those of you that aren't, familiar with the AHR Expo, really what I like to compare it to is kind of like the Detroit Auto Show of HVAC. You're going to have some, cars that are going to be readily available today or tomorrow. You're going to have some new interesting things, some crazy concepts, just to kind of get people thinking about, that's cool, or, that's kind of a strange idea. So there's a whole bunch of different categories.
Yeah, there's 10 different categories. It spans a lot. We're not going to talk about all of them. We're going to concentrate on 3. And we're going to go hot or cold. Hot means you like what they've got going there. Cold means you don't like it so much. All right, so number 1, the category is heating. And the winner of this year's Innovation Award is Airco with their CFR boiler. A little description here. CFR is the world's first stainless steel condensing boiler that can be installed in a Category 1 vent, making it an ideal solution for the commercial retrofit market. Danny boy, what say you?
It's a boiler. I'm seeing it. It looks like a boiler. It is a boiler. So I'm not thinking it's like that crazy and innovative. So it makes me a little cool. If Category 1 vent is like a game changer and we can install these in a whole new place and it changes everything, it could. I could get hot on it, but I think I'm cold. It's a boiler.
I'm with you on this one. And, no offense to Airco and CFR, I'm sure it's a great product. But when I was thinking like Innovation Award, bleeding edge, like what's out there especially for the heating category, which, our industry is going through a massive change right now. Yeah, I'm gonna say cold on this one too.
Okay.
There you go. All right, next category is the refrigeration category. And the winner of this year Innovation Award was Danfoss Bach CO2 transcritical 6-cylinder CO2 compressor that has expanded range to enable larger refrigeration and heat pump applications with a smaller footprint, strong energy efficiency performance.
This is an interesting one too, where I kind of like, I haven't seen a lot of good CO2 stuff around here. It seems like a little more of a difficult, more specialized application, if you will. I know over in Europe they've done some really cool things with some large scale stuff. So I'm like kind of leaning towards like hot. It seems like kind of innovative.
Get off the fence. Pick one.
But I'm hot on it.
You were leaning cold the whole time when hot. I am definitely hot on this. I think CO2 is going to be a refrigerant we're going to leverage a bunch more in the future. Where we're at right now, going from higher GWP refrigerants to lower GWP refrigerants, incorporating more natural refrigerants. I think the more we can use CO2 in applications, it's going to push the industry forward. And there's definitely some limitations to it, but I like the innovation. I think it's cool. I am hot. I'm hot on that one.
There's a hot guy right there.
All right, last category. The last category is sustainability category. The winner here was LG for their residential cold climate heat pump. I'm not even going to offer this one up. We're both hot on this. There are a bunch of different companies that entered into the cold climate challenge, the DOE, that have passed through it. I think LG was part of that. Trane was part of that. Carrier, I believe, was in there too. There's a number of companies that are going after this segment. It is absolutely critical for our industry to move forward. We have to be able to use air-to-water heat pumps in all the climates that we're operating in.
It's kind of a slam dunk. I mean, whoever can get there, good for you. Good job. Thank you. Let's do it.
All right, before Dan steals another one of my hot takes and we close out the episode, we are going to do a stat of the day. For those of you who listen to Sports Talk Radio, this is a absolute 100% ripoff from the Dan Patrick Show. So thank you, Dan and the Danettes. I'm sure you guys are going to be listening to the show. Here we go, stat of the day.
Here comes your stat of the day. Stat of the day. Stat of the day. All right, Charlie, what do we got? What's the stat of the day, bud?
All right, this is going to be applicable mass market here. The stat is the slowest depreciating cars in America today, model year 2018 to present. So which cars have lost their value the least in the last 5 years? Take a guess at top 10. I'm going to run through them quick.
I'm going to give like a Toyota Corolla, a Honda Civic, a Toyota Tacoma. A minivan of some sort?
I would have definitely put a minivan on there. You did really well. That was 3 of the top 10. Okay, so number 10, Toyota Corolla, 25% depreciation. Number 9, Subaru Crosstrek. Number 8, Toyota CR-V.
Okay.
Number 7, Chevy Camaro.
Did not see that coming.
That one surprised me.
Wow.
Number 6, Subaru BRZ. Honestly, don't even know what that is even. Number 5, Honda Civic.
There we go.
Shout out to Scott Wenger. Number 4, Dano, this one should be close to home.
Jeep guy.
The Jeep Wrangler. How did you not pick that one? Number 3, Toyota Tacoma.
Okay.
Rob Jordan, the Squire of the Night, 20% depreciation.
Goodbye.
Number 2, the top 2 are both Porsches.
Yeah.
Which, okay.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
No.
But there you go.
So remember, number 2, Porsche Cayman, 18%, and number 1, the Porsche 911 at only a 9% depreciation over 5 years.
Pick myself up a Porsche after this.
There you go. Thank you for listening to the first episode of Cool Air Hot Takes. Thank you to Jon Horne for joining the show. A very special thank you to our wonderful producer, Elena Guthrie. Mm-hmm. And finally, a thanks to Christy Upton for getting this all pulled together. Please join us next time. We have a very special guest, a friend of the show, and therefore a friend to you, Mr. Joe Heger. He's a compressor engineering leader, and he'll be giving us a peek behind the curtain on some of the latest compressor technologies. If you want to get in touch with us, please reach out, coolair.hottakes@trane.com. We want to hear what you have for questions. We want to hear what you have for hot takes. Anything funny from the jobs you've been working on, any funny stories, like that one time that you got called out to fix some ductwork because an inmate tried to escape through it. Whatever it is, maybe it's some new tools you have, saving you time, saving you money. Please reach out. We'd love to feature it on the show.
If you like the show, please like and subscribe, give us a rating and review for the podcast wherever you listen. So until next time, stay cool and keep those takes hot.